Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Patty Pod. I am back in Brooklyn and I am sick again, as you may be able to hear in my voice. I took a sick day today. I'm feeling better now. It is 5:30 in the evening, but I was not feeling well last night, and today it was good that I took the day off. Just got a cold, I guess. Kind of post-nasal drip and a congestion in my lungs. One of my friends said occupational hazard, and I think that's probably right. I don't think I got it from the 3 Phish concerts that I attended. I did wear a mask. I actually shaved before each concert and put my mask on. The shaving is what you're supposed to do, actually. I think it's required in hospitals and the like, because the fit isn't truly proper unless you've shaved. I have a firefighter friend here in New York who has to shave all the time for that reason. So anyway, I did have the mask. I think I was one of probably 0.5% of the attendees that wore a mask. Maybe that means that it wasn't as effective, but I didn't feel any symptoms until a few days later, so I don't think it was. You never know. But yeah, the last time we spoke, or I spoke to you, I should say, was a few days before Christmas. I think it was December 20th. I was back in Duluth. I was having a great time, and I continued to have a great time. I had played hockey when I spoke on my last podcast. It was so cold, though, that I didn't get outside that day. It was negative 33 on the 20th. It got to negative 36 at one point. We basically had 3 or 4 days around negative 35 there over Christmas. So that was tough. The Tuesday, I got to go play indoors, which was a godsend that we had that game. And then on Wednesday, I was really stuck inside. I was in a beautiful setting. I was at my parents' cabin on a lake outside of the town of Duluth, Minnesota, about 30 minutes outside, but really in the country. And they had piles of snow, like I mentioned, and it was really beautiful. My parents have a nice spot there. They renovated a cabin and did a very nice job with it. So I sat in a fireplace room that had big windows looking out to the trees and the yard and the lake beyond, and I just built a fire and it kind of kept the fire going almost all day. I was pretty much indoors all day on Wednesday, just reading and probably scrolling some in social media, which happens to me maybe more than I'd like, but it does happen somewhat, and working on the podcast a little, just hanging out. But luckily, the game that I played in on the Tuesday of that week with some of those good players that I mentioned, they have the same game happens on Thursday, and I got to play in it again. So, and they had even more college kids, active D1 college kids playing. 3 from Wisconsin, and the 2 I mentioned before from Omaha and Denver, and there may have been another couple. There were some kids that those guys played high school with. So it was real fast paced again, and I loved it. I think I had 1 goal like 20 seconds into the game. Well, how great is that, right? Jump out there, like even more unsure because of the youth and the speed going on. I was super happy. I got a great pass from a guy. And I felt like I kept up. You know, I wasn't certainly a superstar, but felt good about that. Super fun. And, I was also just glad to get out of the cabin to do anything, because it was so cold on the Thursday too. Snowshoeing and skiing and any of that stuff was out of the question. So it was kind of a mixed bag in terms of the weather. Beautiful, still very nutcrackery, but, so cold that it was sort of difficult to enjoy it other than from a visual perspective. So that was the Wednesday and the Thursday. Friday, I was supposed to be playing in a pickup game that I do every year that we call the Christmas Classic. I started it about, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, and had a bunch of people come out the first year. I think, I hadn't seen a bunch of people in a long time, maybe in 10 years at that point. And less people had kids, so it was a little easier for people to get out. We did it at Portman Rink that first year, an outdoor rink in one of the east neighborhoods in Duluth. And anyway, I've been trying to do it the last few years. It's kind of been getting harder and harder. The tricky thing is I have to schedule it close enough to Christmas so that I'll be there and some other people from out of town would be there, but far enough away from Christmas and Christmas Eve so that it's not interfering with people's plans with their family. So in any case, we had a couple of guys sign up for it. My voice is cracking. You probably heard the first one. That's the phlegm. I promise it's not the masculinity. And so I was excited, but it was so cold that we had to cancel. And luckily, one of my friends, Dan Goldman, also a listener, shout out Dan Goldman, he was able to get some indoor ice at the last minute. Boy, was that a godsend, because I was really getting the cabin fever big time. So I showed up about 5 minutes before we were supposed to start. I figured, because he said he's gonna we were gonna open it up to kids this time, and I said, great, maybe that'll make it a little easier for some of the guys our age to go, and let's have some kids join. The more the merrier. So I show up about 5 minutes before we're supposed to start, and the door's locked to the arena, and all of a sudden, carload after carload of kids comes bombing down into the parking lot, down the hill and into the parking lot. And, I'm like, oh God, it's 36 below with the wind chill. And some of these kids start getting out of their car, and I'm like, oh no, you can't be outside. I can't be responsible for frostbite for 20 squirts or whatever. So I'm like, guys, go back in your car, please. And, just as I was saying that, though, the rink director showed up, and it was like 2 or 3 minutes after the time that we were supposed to be there, and he opened it up for us, and it was so great. Just let us in, had the locker rooms already warmed up, and Dan put the word out to his son's teams, which are more like mites and squirts, and my sister put the word out to my nephew's teams, which are squirts and peewees. And all of a sudden, I think every kid from all those teams showed up. We had about 50 kids, I think, maybe more. And it was a little nuts because, I kind of went into teacher mode, like, we got to organize this. And at first, the kids were just on the ice warming up. And it looked like a scene you'd see at an outdoor rink with just kids kind of just, out there doing whatever, like not real any organization. So the kids, they were just, they were skating around and shooting and stick handling, whatever. But, pretty quickly, we got to get this, people are going to want to actually play games. So I talked to Dan, and there were a couple other dads immediately just jumped in, and we just split the ice in two with these bumpers, and we put the peewees on one side and the mites on the other. And, I kind of handled the peewees, and Dan handled the mites and the squirts. And it was, as Dan said after, the coaches do such a great job up there, and the hockey culture is so strong that the kids immediately separated into squirts and into mites on that side of the rink. One group would play at a time. Dan would blow the whistle or just give the word, and they'd immediately skate off, and the next group would come racing out. And they had a great time, and they did that for probably 2 hours. It was awesome because that was the first day off for public school. I think it was the second day off for some of the private schools. I'd heard that, some of the parents were really grateful because they had no idea what to do with their kids. It's 35, 36 below, and they're off from school. I'm sure they figured they'd be sending them outside on a normal winter break day. But, Yeah, so they ended up getting a chance to play, and it was just like it had that festive, kind of informal feeling that we just threw together. It wasn't their coaches that were there trying to, coach them in any way or, direct them or redirect them. It wasn't their parents. It was just, some random guys that got the ice, and the kids just got out and just got to be rink rats. So that was fun. It was fun to see. It was fun to see it just come together. Super smooth. Everybody was cooperative, and everybody seemed like they were having fun. We probably had 6 or 7 dads that showed up as well. I jumped into the band or to the Pee Wee game for a little while, and then after the Squirts and Mites wrapped up their side of the ice, we had the dads play the Pee Wees on the full rink, and that was really good. The Pee Wees were just our speed. I said we're in big trouble when they become bantams because I don't know if we're gonna be able to keep up. All the dads that played, you could tell had played. I knew probably 5 or 6 of them out of the 7 or 8, and had all played like at a higher level in youth and played some high school, and some of them played college and stuff. All guys that can play, but these kids are just they're kids. They got boundless energy. They have trained better than we did when we were kids. They're better, better trained and have more skill. And so it was fun. It was totally a match for us. We were giving it everything we had, and it was a super fun day. One of the dads, a friend of mine, he put on the goalie pads and played goalie. So that was fun. That was the Friday, and then had a nice Christmas Eve at my parents' place with 4 of my siblings and all of their kids. My parents do this every year. We have a dinner, and then we play some games. We played charades. That was fun. I was rubbing it in when my side was winning, and giving it to the nieces and nephews. So that's kind of the uncle thing to do, I think. And then we Christmas Day was nice. Went up to my brother Brendan's. He had everybody out. My sister and her husband Dan, they cooked, and I think my brother Nick and his wife brought some food too that they had prepared, and it was good. The kids all had a good time, and we're running around the house. My brother's got a log cabin style house, pretty spacious, and they had my brother's sister is a surgeon, and she invited a traveling surgeon that she works with over, and he brought his parents and child and his wife, and it was nice. It's nice to have people that maybe wouldn't have another place to go. I know I would appreciate that. I think if I was somewhere by myself or with just my nuclear family. So it was fun, interesting people. I had a nice chat with the doctor's his father and his companion. His father was an elderly man who had a long career as a bioengineer, microbiologist engineer, something like that. He worked on developing medicine. So that was Christmas and Christmas Eve, and then the next few days after, I came down to the Twin Cities where we were going to fly out of, and I had a chance to have dinner with a good friend from high school and his wife, Derek and Bay. They just had their newborn baby, Pepin. So I had just met Pepin a couple days prior, and we all went out to eat this nice little neighborhood restaurant, kind of near them. And then later that evening, I got to meet up with some old college friends, which was great. Nate and Dave, who are listeners too. So shout out to all you listeners. I hadn't seen those guys in a long time. I don't know when I saw Nate last, probably towards the college years. So 20-some years we're looking at. And it's been a while with Dave too. And I got to meet Nate's wife, Anna, and see Dave's wife, Jennifer, again. So that was fun. We had a nice long evening catching up and just sharing what's been going on in our lives, and having a lot of laughs like we used to back in the old days. So that was really fun. I was glad to be able to do that. I kind of got reconnected a little bit because our choir conductor passed away. It was really sad. He passed away this summer, and there was a memorial service for him that was live streamed, and it was on. There was kind of a group sharing some information about all that on Facebook, and so we're kind of trying to get together. Some of us that were in the choir in college, so it was our group this time. Maybe next time I'll be able to connect with some more folks. We'll see. I hope so. I always like reconnecting with friends. It's kind of wild, I think, as you get older. I have always felt this way. I just it felt like kind of a social whirlwind when I was growing up. When I was in Duluth, like as I was driving around some of the old neighborhoods that my friends lived in, I had this sort of feeling that was kind of Gatsbyan when I was a kid. Probably because I didn't do a lot of homework in high school. But it seemed like it was kind of one rolling party. And, I think for a lot of people, you see your friends in between classes, when you're in junior high school, even elementary school, you're all together all the time. And, in middle school and high school, you see them in between classes, like every hour practically, right? And then before and after school. And oftentimes I would chat with friends after school. I had this little chair kind of with an ottoman in my bedroom, and we had a cordless phone, had 2 lines, and I used to just kind of sit up there and chat away using both lines at sometimes. And I don't know, it was just very social in high school. College was the same. Now you're living with your friends for a lot of people. You've got a lot more free time during the day. I was definitely more studious in college. I kind of just changed gears completely and decided I was going to take school seriously. But, there was still a lot of time to socialize, and I love to do that. So I did a lot of that too. And then you kind of leave. I don't know. I felt like for me, when I moved to the East Coast, at first I was out in New Jersey and really wasn't close to any of my classmates. They were kind of scattered throughout New York. And then when I would try to see them, I would host things. I would organize social events. But then when I left graduate school and I just started working, it felt like I kind of didn't see people very much. And it was such a sudden change, it felt like to me. I made friends with my coworkers, but it just kind of felt different. I don't know. I kind of don't like to play politics, and I know there's a way of being friends with people where you don't do that, but and I try to be friendly at all of my jobs, but I don't know. There's something about it where I've kind of kept a little bit of distance, and so I would see my friends every once in a while during the week. And on the weekends, especially when I was younger, like in my late 20s and early 30s, I'd see my friends a lot on the weekend. We'd hang out, especially this group of guys I played hockey with. But as I got older and I moved back to Brooklyn, and I don't know, it was less and less and less of that. And as some of my friends started having kids, then it was, even less of that. And I needed to kind of chill out and not stay out so late. And I quit drinking, which kind of was a part of those late nights and the weekends. And so it just got quieter, and I've still been trying to adjust to that. But it was great to see old friends. It's like I have some friends here for sure, and I'm super grateful for them. But there's something about seeing old friends that's special. So I got to do that. I also saw some high school friends, Ryan and Griffin, guys that I was really tight with in high school. I haven't seen in a really long time too. So we went out one night, and that was really fun to catch up. I mean, when you got 20 years to catch up on, it's quite the night, we were just couldn't stop sharing stories all night long and laughing our butts off. And those guys are Fish fans too. So that was fun. We were singing Fish at the end of the night, which was great. It was like a flashback. My buddy Dave, my college friend, he's also a Fish fan, which I didn't realize. So I love that's a little special connection always when you meet somebody that likes the band. Speaking of Fish, I got to go, like I mentioned, I went to 3 shows. It was really good. They sound great. They're in good form. They have really been since the lead singer kind of cleaned up his life. He got sober and kind of, I think, was able to kind of just, I don't know, feel more peace and stability in his life. And I don't know, they've sounded good to me ever since they've been back together. That happened about, I think, 2009, I want to say. Hardcore Fish fans would be all over me for not knowing that. But in any case, I got to see them. I saw that tickets were cheap. They, I guess with all that Southwest debacle, with all those flights being canceled, ticket prices fell because folks couldn't come in from out of town. So I found a 4-day pass, and I was flying on the Thursday night, so I couldn't make that show. But the Wednesday night. But I did make Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was great. I mean, I don't love all their songs, but I probably like half of what they play at a standard show, and I was just into it. That was my day on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I was kind of wake up and maybe do some reading and maybe watch some hockey. The World Juniors were on. I was watching that every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then at night just go to Fish. That was my day. That was pretty awesome. I'm a big fan of the World Juniors. It's the only, it's like probably the best on best hockey right now. It's guys that are 20 and under. But since there's no Olympics, or there's no NHL players in the Olympics, and there's no World Cup of Hockey, which the NHL used to put on, it's the kind of the only best on best where you get the best players from each nation playing each other. So it's cool, and because I follow college hockey enough, there's some players that I know, and yeah, it's just kind of a festive thing. This this international tournament every year around Christmas time. The U.S. had a good run. They just won the bronze medal about 20 minutes ago. They lost in a tough game to Canada. It was a little controversial. There was 2 goals that were called back that I guess according to the IIHF, the governing body of these international tournaments, they maybe perhaps should have been called back, at least one of them. But I don't know if, from what I saw, it didn't look like it. So that was tough. But, Canadians won fair and square. So they're going to play for the gold medal later tonight. I'm not sure if I'll watch it. If I can find some kind of free stream, perhaps I will. But, yeah, so I got to do that, watch that. And that was the holiday break. Back to it. Re-entry is tough for me. I can get real kind of on cloud 9 and disconnected, and it's good. I'm glad that I'm able to do that when I'm on breaks. I think it's crucial, that I can get away from everything and recharge. But it can be hard getting back into the swing of things. So, I was trying to just reach kind of a peaceful place with it all. It makes me think a bit about the spirituality that I promised to mix in my description of these podcasts. Like I mentioned before, I like Taoism, and I was thinking this week about the East, kind of the East versus the West. And I like Eastern thought because it's a lot of it kind of as just sort of a description of something that can't be named. And obviously there's still a lot of speaking, like in the Tao Te Ching, it's a long book. And but they say the eternal Tao cannot be named, so they're always kind of trying to say these words that we're saying, don't take them or take them with a grain of salt. We can't really describe this whole thing. We can only just point at it. And some of that is pretty well developed in the Abrahamic traditions, which are Christianity and Islam and Judaism. I think that's all of them. But in those traditions, there's like in the Jewish custom, there's this thing of having the word God crossed out, I think is how they do it, or they don't spell G-O-D, it's like just G-D. And the point is, like, we can't name this overwhelming, uh, being beyond being. You can't even hardly speak of it. And so I like that. But I think that, for me at least, with the Abrahamic religions, there's a bit too much of the good versus evil. Sometimes it feels a bit like an action movie, like the ultimate action movie. And I think sometimes that kind of thinking can get embedded into even non-religious people where, maybe they're advocating for some kind of marginalized group, and it can very easily slip into this us versus them. Like in your mind, I think, or in one's mind, you can adopt that kind of good versus evil, in politics, or, if you're protesting against a certain economic system. And I really do think that we make missteps as people, but I mean, one of the biggest things that I believe in is that we're all one, and that we run into a lot of trouble when we make somebody distinct and different. And I think that can happen when we get too much into this narrative, into this dramatic narrative, this kind of ultimate action movie of good versus evil. So the Eastern thing I align with that more, because I think I avoid those kind of moments more, where the Eastern, it's more about sort of like the Force and, Star Wars. It's not a terrible sort of analogy of what at least Taoism or the Tao is about. And, it's more about kind of aligning with it, feeling it, going with it, than it is about overcoming evil in this really emotional way. When I kind of get to that point, there are moments I have when it feels like sometimes it's impersonal, when I kind of start thinking a lot about the Tao or something along those lines, the Force. And that's where I think the Western or the Abrahamic religions are really actually helpful, because there is this very much the sense of a loving God, of a personal God. And I like that, so I take some of both. I mix my Tao with like a loving father kind of a feeling, because I think that whatever this is, this reality, it's gonna have all this, if there's some reality, if some part of reality includes things like a loving fatherly figure, which obviously our reality does, then the greatest reality is going to include that as well. So I think that's where the Abrahamic religions, in one of the areas where they really get things, where I personally resonate with, because when the chips are really down, I do turn to this like idea of, a personal or cosmic father kind of figure. So yeah, it's a little bit about East and West. I guess what makes me come to all that is I have this kind of emotional intuition, which is what I call it. There's sort of this feeling that feels right to me, that there's this kind of personal God and this Force, that it's a mix. And I get this sort of sense that I used to have when I was a kid, when I think about something, when it just sort of feels like, of course, that's the way it is. I don't know, like sometimes I'm afraid that it's not that way, but then when I'm in a better place, I know it's that way. And I get that feeling like I think I had when I was a kid, which is kind of like everything's fine. Even when something would go bad and I'd be upset, like I didn't even know I had this feeling, but there was this feeling around it that ultimately everything's okay. So that's my barometer for what guides me. Now, speaking a little bit more about East and West, a lot of the Eastern thought is that, we're all one, and that goes into my thinking about these problems we have when we other people. I watched this lecture by a guy, I think it was the Royal Institute in the UK, and if you search on YouTube for quantum field theory at the Royal Institute, or it could be the Royal Society, but I think it's the Royal Institute, some famous academic institution that, like Newton spoke at or worked under, whatever, and, all these other famous British scientists. But he talked about quantum field theory, which is this idea that's been proven that the particles of physics and of subatomic physics aren't little things, but they're kind of like heightened areas of energy within a field that permeates all of space, which was kind of bowled me over when I learned about it. So that would mean, the particles that make up all the atoms that make up the physical world are part of a field that permeates all of space. And so, I'm not, in a very real scientific way, distinct from anybody else or any other matter. It's this extended field, and my particles are just portions of that field, or just even not even portions, like areas of high energy, or so that's a certain type of energy, a certain type of vibration within those fields. That really kind of brought home this idea of oneness to me, that we are one with all of the universe. And so that's a little something about the Eastern. The Western, I was watching the Argentinian celebrations after they won the World Cup, and the enormity of the passion of those fans and of the scenes in I guess it was in Buenos Aires, where I think I saw an estimate of 1 million people were in this square, the one that had the big obelisk in the center, and it was just wild. I mean, wild. I don't think I'd want to be in it because it was so, overwhelming, but I loved watching it. Just the absolute joy and the passion that was pouring out, to have 1 million people come streaming out of their homes and out of their restaurants and cafes and, just start chanting and singing and everything was wild. So it feels like to me that countries that are more Catholic, especially, are have more of that passion. Like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it feels like Catholic, like you see some of these guys crossing themselves, the players, and I don't know, I think that because like the deeper Catholicism or Christianity is, but especially Catholicism, is rooted in the nation, you get that big drama that, is kind of hard for me sometimes. But it's kind of great sometimes, right? Like, that's the other side of it is, boy, it's this joy that just bursted through the seams. Like, probably you're living your life, your day-to-day life in Argentina, and then you have a moment like that where it's like everyone's a brother, everyone's a sister. They're all just dancing and hugging, and, there's 1 million of them popping champagne, and just, it was amazing. Amazing to see. It seemed ecstatic, and I loved watching it. I loved watching it. So that's the upside, I guess, of the narrative based, or of the drama based or dramatic based approach to religion. I want to talk a little bit about language. I think I encountered the word spellbinding the other day. That's one of my favorite words. I think just like it's such a good description of something, right? If you're spellbound by something, it's obviously made up of the words spell and bound. And I find that so evocative, instead of just saying that something was fascinating or that it got your attention. This talks about something having a spell, like a magical spell that's been cast upon you. And then binding is if you're like tied up with a rope or something. I don't know, it reminds me of idioms, just like it's such a more colorful way to speak about something. And it's a great state to be in. It also reminded me of the times that I've been spellbound by something. I think that's what I'm hunting for when I'm on my phone and I go on social media, or I don't know, I'm scrolling through Netflix and trying to find something, or I'm trying to find a book. It doesn't happen often to me. So when it does, it's like, I don't know. I love it. It's one of my favorite states to be in. And when I just hear that word, it kind of makes me think of that state, and it just makes me a little bit happier. Speaking of language and idioms, I thought about another use of language, not exactly an idiom, but the locution. Actually, when I looked up the word locution on my iPhone, they gave me the definition for interior locution, which is, I guess, a religious term. It's a form of this is the definition, a form of a private revelation, but is distinct from an apparition or a religious vision. An interior locution may be defined as, quote, a supernatural communication to the ear, imagination, or directly to the intellect, end quote. And I've had these moments. They're very rare, but I had one earlier this year when I was thinking about something at work, and I just had this like thought that felt like it was coming from deeper inside me, like my real intuition to like go another way and it was going to be fine, which I did, and I just left the matter behind me and it never came up again. And you can call that intuition. I liked that idea though about internal locution. I didn't know that was a thing. But that's the way things happen for me. I don't see visions. I don't, I don't know. Sometimes I don't hear things necessarily. I kind of more feel a thought. I have a thought and I have a feeling associated, and I love when that happens. And I try to really pay attention to that. But no, I wrote the word locution because it's also defined as just like, regular locution is it's a word or a phrase, especially with regard to style or idiom. And there was a coach that I had when I was the student manager on the high school team after my career had ended. And this guy, his favorite locution, he would just say, shit, fuck. he was, I've always found that hilarious. He'd be like, shit, fuck, the puck comes in on the weak side, you guys got to move over there, or, it'd be like going on the bus and he'd be like, well, I don't know, Brooke City, what do you think? Shit, fuck, it could be Subway, it could be Hardee's. That's just how he talked. He just threw it in there all the time. So me and my friends do that from time to time. I always laugh. My parents always laugh at that one too. What a locution. Economic use of language. Gets to the point. Covers both bases of the number one and number two swear words in the English language. I had a kind of a funny moment when I was at home with my mom. She had, I poured a bowl of cereal, a big bowl of cereal. I try to eat a lot in the mornings before I go and exercise rather than eat a lot after. Sometimes it's just because I want to knock 2 meals out with one stone. And, it's just easier to do that. But she saw this giant bowl of cereal and she's like, are you going to eat all that? And I'd already had like eggs and toast and I was going to have another bowl. I said to Mom, I'm not sure if you're free on noontime during the week, but I'm sure there's a group of mean girls at East High School that could use your skill set. And I was telling her that, she had to get on Snapchat and Instagram where she could really, really get after it. Anyway, I thought about the last thing I'll finish with is we were coming home, something else I thought was sort of funny, and Kate insisted that I put my phone on airplane mode. She does this every time that we fly. She insisted, and then I started laughing, and she was like, no, you're not going to be interfering with the plane's communication systems. And I thought, I was like, don't you think the flight attendants would check everyone's device if it was really mission critical to us staying in the air? But, and then she thought I wasn't doing it. She even smacked my arm, which she never does. So, I did it. Truth be told, I do it anyways, just because I'm a bit of a rule follower, but I always find it funny when she gets on my case about turning the phone to airplane mode. Anyway, that's it. I've gone on long enough. I hope everyone's well. Peace and love.